With the general election coming up on June 8th, I went to Plymouth Labour and spoke to Luke Pollard, the parliamentary candidate for Plymouth, Sutton and Devonport, about the election campaign and what the Labour Party is doing to win the vote in such a controversial seat like Plymouth.
Hello, my name's Luke Pollard. I'm the Labour and Cooperative Parliamentary Candidate for Plymouth, Sutton and Devonport.
Okie dokie, how are you today?
Doing well, yeah. There's quite a lot going on in the election campaign, especially when we weren't expecting an election campaign. Theresa May said that we weren't going to have an election, and lo, here we are.
Yeah, so despite the surprising snap election that's been announced, do you think the Labour Party is doing everything it can to sort of rake in the votes, especially amongst students?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the big priority we have with students, there's 45,000 students in Plymouth, and we think only about 2,000 to 3,000 of them actually are registered to vote. So it's trying to get students to, one, register. It's really easy, just put register to vote in Google. It takes 2 minutes. You need your name, address, national insurance number, nice and simple.
Yeah.
Secondly, to use that vote. And so if students actually vote in the same proportions as retired folk, I bet we wouldn't have tuition fees. I bet we wouldn't have the scrapping and maintenance grants. I bet you'd all have got to university having had EMA along the way. But because students and young people don't vote in the same proportion, then the government can get away with punishing young people. And finally, is working out where those student votes are most effective. So if you don't come from Plymouth and you come from elsewhere, if you live in a safe Tory seat or even a safe Labour seat, you know, this is the most marginal seat in the entire Southwest. The Tories won here by only 523 votes in 2015. So if you want to see the back of the Tories, if you want to oust the Tory MPs we've got, work out where will you be on June the 8th? Will you have gone back home? Will you still be in halls? Will you still be in a student house? Register, get yourself a postal vote if you're moving away, and make sure you're using your vote here in Plymouth to get rid of the Tories.
Okay, and obviously with, like you said, the cutthroat politics in Plymouth, a very interesting seat, quite borderline. And with the news today of the tuition fees being scrapped, I was just sort of interested to know more about that, if you could.
Yeah, I mean, it's hideously unfair that we're burdening as a society young people that go to university with not only £9,250 a year in fees, and then the cost of maintenance as well, which means young people are graduating university already with £45,000 worth of debt-ish. I don't need to remind you of that one there. But that's wrong. I mean, I went to university and paid fees. I paid upfront fees. Mm-hmm. So I was at university from 98 to 2002, and I paid just over £1,000 upfront each year. Now, that was wrong. Paying upfront fees was wrong. Introducing tuition fees has had a detrimental effect, especially for people from Plymouth, as an example, going to university, because the fear of debt is huge. And then, once someone has graduated, getting on the housing ladder is really difficult because of the housing crisis. Getting the additional support for training, especially if you want to go to the NHS, say, when the government scrapped the nursing bursaries, you know, it does seem that things are stacked against students at the moment. So Labour's plan of getting rid of tuition fees and, importantly, bringing back maintenance grants for those people that come from poorer backgrounds, I think is a hugely positive step forwards. But it will only happen if students come out and actually cast their ballot for that policy. And that means voting Labour in both Plymouth, Sutton and Devonport in the south of the city, roughly where the A38 is in the south, and Plymouth Moorview, which is roughly A38 in north, which is where Margins is based.
Okay. I've seen quite a lot of social media posts of people that are sort of very confused and on the border of choosing between Conservative and Lib Dem and Labour, mostly Labour and Conservative. And one of the biggest concerns that I've seen is or the sort of disbelief of they're going to get rid of £9,000 a year for every single student to pay, is how that's going to come about. And I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, all the announcements will be in our official manifesto. I know they've leaked a draft version that's come out, but the proper manifesto comes out next week. And that will include how we intend to pay for every single promise we make. So roughly speaking, we're making about £60 billion worth of spending commitments, and roughly speaking, we're probably making around £70 billion worth of tax changes. Now, the most important thing about that is we're asking those people who have the most to pay a wee bit more to support the many. So effectively, it's a phrase that is used quite a lot in low-price circles. It's kind of the many, not the few. But I think that's the right way of doing it. You know, the Southwest is a poor region, and actually we need to have the support of those people that from richer regions to support our services, both in terms of health education. But our education spend is the lowest in the country. You and I get a third for health, public health, what someone in Kensington and Chelsea gets. Now, I don't think we're worth a third of someone in London. And actually, I think it's about time we started sending people to Westminster who's actually going to stand up for our city, but also stand up for young people. because in time after time, certainly for the last 7 years, young people, be they in FE or in HE, have been at the receiving end of Tory cuts. We've seen cuts to further education, we've seen the scrapping of EMA, we've seen the trebling of tuition fees, and now the potential for that cap to be taken off with the Conservatives, and so people paying even more than the £9,000 a year. Now, all those are bad news for young people, it's bad news for students in general, whatever age they are, but students can decide the outcome of this election if they register and if they vote.
Okey-dokey, brilliant. And do you think, finally, that any of this will be affected financially and, I suppose, socially by Brexit?
Oh, hugely. I mean, Brexit is fundamentally going to change everything. And actually, the myth around this election that Theresa May needs, extra powers to go and do it. She doesn't. She's never lost a single vote in the House of Commons around Brexit. So it is a myth. She wants to do it to get more power, so she can increase taxes and cut public services further. Now, I think that's deeply worrying. But if you're looking at Brexit, most young people didn't vote for Brexit. But Brexit's happening. Whether you voted Remain or Leave, the priority is what kind of deal are we getting out of it? Now, Plymouth gets a raw deal from government. You don't even have to look at the train line to know they don't fund us properly down here in the southwest. So who is fighting for, say, the Erasmus programme, when students can study abroad in European universities? Who's fighting for our ability to have, the ability to work in other countries, and vice versa? It seems to me that, again, the kind of issues that a lot of young people are interested in, that sense of, being a global citizen, the sense that actually the borders of our country shouldn't define the extent of our ambition, is taking a retrograde step, it's going backwards. And for me and Sudan, who's our candidate in the north of the city, I think we've got this vision that actually we need to have MPs going to Westminster who are going to stand up for Plymouth, stand up for young people, kind of give a voice to those groups that don't traditionally get that mention in Parliament. And so my kind of message to young people, be there at Marjohn's or any other university in Plymouth, is get yourself registered to vote. If you do not register to vote and use it, you do not have a say, which basically means you've got no reason to complain about anything for the next 5 years. Now, we all like a bit of a moan over a pint at the end of the day. Unless you're registered to vote and using it, you shouldn't have that say over the next 5 years because you will have opted out here. Register, vote, and let's kick the Tories out.
Thank you very much for your time, Luke.
Cheers, thank you.
So there we have it. Students and young people really do have the ability to swing this vote in the general election on June the 8th. All we need to do is register to vote and use our vote here in Plymouth. I'm Alex Green, reporting for Jam Live.